Hello, friends, and welcome to another 80s Christian rock block radio show. I'm your host, Mike Potter. This is the show where you can hear classic Christian rock from the 80s with some late 70s and early 90s thrown in for your listening pleasure. On November 6, 2010, the 80s Christian rock and heavy metal band Bloodgood was inducted into the Christian Music Hall of Fame to the surprise of many. The Hall of Fame has great artists like Michael W. Smith, Sandy Patty, Larry Norman, Amy Grant, all of whom are a bit tamer in their music expression. Never before, and not since, has a hard rock band like Bloodgood been inducted into the Hall of Fame. It was truly a remarkable feat. Here's Michael Bloodgood from the 1980s sharing how Bloodgood got their start on what would be a 30-plus year career that landed them in the Hall of Fame.
The Lord began speaking to my heart specifically about the heavy metal kids. I worked in a music retail store for years selling guitars and amps and things, and I saw a lot of these heavy metal kids coming in every day into my shop. I just never saw an outreach to them. I mean, we saw a lot of Christian new wave bands beginning to come out in the late 70s and early 80s, and yet the heavy metal scene was growing and growing, and I just never saw the outreach to those kids. And it concerned me. I was already involved in another band at that time, just kind of a top 40 hard rock type thing, but didn't really have an outreach to the metal kids. So it was at that time that the Lord really impressed in my heart this vision for the band Bloodgood. And I just immediately just committed it to prayer because it was, this is long before anybody else had done any kind of a metal outreach of any kind, and I knew it was going to be controversial. So I just began to pray. Then I knew that through prayer that if it was God's vision, that the vision would expand and it would become more detailed. And if it was just me, that it would just begin to dissipate. Well, as you can probably guess, the vision did begin to grow. I left the last band that I was in and spent about a half a year continuing in prayer for the members of the band, whoever they might be. I didn't even have anybody in mind. And as I continued to pray, God began to add the members. And so about December of '84, we met together and shook hands and hugged each other, and we started the band. We hadn't even heard each other play yet, but each of the members in Bloodgood had been called by the Lord. We had given this vision to reach out to the heavy metal kids. So we began rehearsing in January of '85 and did our first show with Stryper, I believe it was in April that same year, and here we are.
And here they are on the 80s Christian rock block. It's Bloodgood from 1988. Heaven on Earth. That's the former lead singer of Kansas, John Elefante, with the band Mastodon from 1990. Christian rock in the 1980s was also influenced by another former member of Kansas, Kerry Livgren, who had been the guitarist, keyboardist, and principal composer of the band Kansas. During his time with the group, he explored numerous Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism, and those were reflected on some of Kansas's albums, but his spiritual exploration led him to Christ in 1979, which eventually led him to leave Kansas in 1983 and form another, more Christian-based band called AD. Here's a song from their 1985 album Art of the State called Lead Me to Reason on the 80s Christian Rock Block.
Deep in the heart is a creature of deception, lying in wait to deceive me again, fighting the feeling and failing to win. Where do I begin? Over and over I silently scream, this must be a dream. Only your face will lead me to reason, just one embrace to carry me through. Only your grace will keep me from treason now. My head is reeling in the wake of delusion. Left to myself, I'm so quickly undone. Wayward I wander again and again, still haunted by sin. Who will deliver the unreconciled, the prodigal child? Only your face will lead me to reason, just one embrace to carry me through. Only your grace will keep me from treason now. I can't begin to account for my condition. Questions with answers I just can't explain. Whoa. Utterly helpless and nothing to do. I'm lost without you. Bury the old man and raise up the new when his time is due. Only your face will lead me to reason, just one embrace to carry me through. Only your grace will keep me from treason now. Only your face will lead me to reason, just one embrace to carry me through. Only your grace will keep me from treason now. looking up at the sky. She wears a cross around her neck. Got the words at her fingertips. At the church, she knelt to pray. Sweet Lord Jesus, give me the strength. She cried his name. Yeah, she cried his name. Young love, kiss him goodbye. Young love, don't you cry. Young love, it's no lie. There is love before the day you die. Young love, kiss him goodbye. Young love, don't you cry. Young love, it's no lie. There is love before the day you die.
That's Bride and the song Young Love from 1989. Did you know that lead singer Dale Thompson is still going after all these years? And he sounds just as good now as he did back then. Between 1986 and 2013, Thompson released 14 studio albums with Bride, along with 5 solo albums, and then he and his brother retired the group. He then moved to New Zealand, where he sits in his home studio and records vocal tracks for several bands that he's a part of. And I did say he sits. For some reason, he finds it easiest to belt out his vocals while sitting and sipping on cranberry juice. You can watch him in action on his Facebook page as he frequently posts videos of himself recording. I mean, you got to check him out on Facebook, where you can also stay updated on a brand new Bride album in the works called Here Is Your God. And speaking of Facebook, have you visited our Facebook page yet? Have you liked it yet? You can do it now by going to facebook.com/80s Rock Block. That's 80S Rock Block, all one word. Check in, say hello, tell us that you're listening, and tell us what you want to hear. Back to the music now from 1983. Here's one of the few 80s Christian rock bands with a female lead singer. It's Barnabas and the song Storm Clouds.
Turned on the music to listen for a while. The junk they play gets worse every day.
Direction band. How'd this get in the stacks? Oh well, here's hoping.
We see wave after wave of people in the street playing their songs but missing the beat.
People, oh people, why can't you understand? Fools with no disguises and love so close at hand.
Will you begin to receive the love of God?
Jesus wants to touch you and fold you with his love.
Look into your life and tell me, what do you see?
Don't you realize all the offers is for free?
Look out! Oh, I know that there's a heaven and soon I'll be there. No lying, no crying, no dying, no fear.
If you want to join us, you can come along with this bloody bite you, and to him you'll belong. Come along, yeah.
We see wave after wave of sailors every day, drowning in the surf of the sorrow.
We're reaching out to you, pointing to the way. He'll give you a better tomorrow.
And to those of our friends who know the King is your King, keep shining till we meet again.
Shining till we meet again.
I was like 2 weeks before my 18th birthday when I came to ask Jesus into my life, and it was really the beginning of the end of my own addictions. For about 6 years, I did every drug you could do except shoot, run up needles, and right on the edge of full-blown alcoholism at that point as well. And the bands that I had played in up until that time, I started in blues, like I said, R&B, a bit of soul music and so on, for quite a while. Discovered Hendrix, morphed into really intense, what was then called acid rock, really intense rock, and early heavy metal, and hard rock, all blues-based all the time. That's just kind of where I was coming from. And then here I am, some months later, my life's been changed, right? And I'm thinking there are other people out there that are still just trying to figure out why they're on the planet, and caught up in some of the same addictions and stuff. And the punchline for me was, Jesus says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What's inside is going to come out eventually. And so what am I going to do? And there were some needs in that community among the students, up in the Milwaukee area, throughout Chicago, the Midwest. So many doors open for concerts and stuff, and people had heard where I'd come from. I didn't join the fellowship as a musician. I just showed up because I needed help and I needed to get healed, And it was a little bit of a tag, you're it thing, So I started doing acoustic stuff because I didn't know what else to do. They asked me to sing here, sing there, do this in a coffee house, this and that. And I realized that the average kid in the street could care less about this kind of music. It's just way too mellow. So we talked and prayed about it, and there were only a handful of Christians doing authentic rock. And of course, I've come out of Zeppelin at that point, right, and Sabbath and what was then the heaviest stuff going, and we can do this authentically. And we can write about important things, and we can express love for the Lord, but also we can talk specifically about issues that even sometimes the church doesn't want to talk about. So writing those sorts of songs in a really aggressive rock, blues-based, hard rock format, it was just amazing how people just... Plus, they either paid attention or left, you know what I mean? You get Marshall stacks and you're hitting 280 dB. I mean, either you listen or you leave kind of thing. So we did a lot of outdoor shows, and you name it. Everything from clubs to festivals to whatever.
That's Glenn Kaiser talking about the beginnings of Resurrection Band in the early 70s. If you're a fan of Res Band, and more specifically the voice of Glenn Kaiser, then you're probably aware that after Res Band ended, he continued with the Glenn Kaiser Band. Heavy blues rock is the best way to describe what he does now, and to me, it's just as good as the stuff he did with Res Band. He recorded 18 albums with Res Band, and then post-Res Band, Glenn has recorded 19 more albums. I know that I will never tire of his voice, and with almost 40 albums recorded, I may never run out of his music either. Coming up next on the 80s Christian Rock Block, it's something I'm really excited about because I know it will generate a lot of discussion. I'm going to play two songs that represent the two eras of Petra, the Greg X Volz era and the John Schlitt era. And what I want to know is, which era was better, in your opinion? Both were fantastic, but both are different. Which one do you like best? Which era's music do you find yourself going back to and listening to the most? Go to our Facebook page to chime in with your thoughts at facebook.com/80s Rock Block. Here's one of my favorite songs from the Greg X Volz Petra era from the Beat the System album, Adonai.
the Greg X. Volts Petra era or the John Schlitt Petra era? Which one do you like more? Go to facebook.com/80s Rock Block and let us know.
Well, there you have it, Petra fans. The Greg X. Volts Petra era or the John Schlitt Petra era. Which one do you like more? Chime in with your opinion at facebook.com/80s Rock Block and let your voice be heard. And now here's one of the fathers of Christian rock and roll from 1985. It's Daryl Mansfield and the song After the Storm.
You've been walking in that rain again, looking for a friend. The wind blows hard in your backyard, and it feels like it's the end. Oh, after the storm, after the storm. It's like fire in my bones.
David and the Giants and their 1984 song, Fire. These guys began as a rock band back in the 60s, but in 1977, they all gave their lives to Christ and went on to record 17 albums up until 1999. In 2013, after the original band began performing reunion concerts, they recorded a live album. And then just last year, they recorded a brand new album, which was voted the 5th best album of 2019 by ClassicChristianRockZine.com. Right up there with Michael Sweet's 10 album and Newsboys United. So they made quite a splash back into the Christian music scene almost 50 years after they began. The year was 1990. After 5 years of playing the LA club circuit and garnering some of the largest crowds in those clubs, the band Holy Soldier released their debut album, which was met with great critical acclaim. Here's one of the hits from that album, See No Evil. from 1989, Guardian, and One of a Kind off the album First Watch, which was produced by Stryper's Oz Fox. It was the only album they released in the 80s and the only album with lead singer Paul Colley. As you know, Jamie Rowe, the former lead singer of the band Tempest, became the lead singer of Guardian in 1990, and with him at the helm, the band was a mainstay in the Christian rock world of the 90s. And in coming shows, I'm sure we'll be hearing from the Jamie Rowe-led Guardian. But for now, that's all the time we have. Thank you for joining me for the 80s Christian Rock Block radio show. Please join me again next week for more classic Christian rock from the 80s, with some late 70s and early 90s thrown in. And in the meantime, hit me up on Facebook at facebook.com/80s Rock Block. Until next time, I'm Mike Potter. So long, and God bless.